Manchester United won, Fulham nil. Another unconvincing win by Manchester United, but it's still 3 points. On to the next one. Without any further ado, let's analyze. Okay, so the first talking point is of course going to be a clear improvement that we have seen under Erik ten Hag. Now in this video, towards the end, I am going to be critical of Erik ten Hag. But of course, I cannot deny the obvious. I cannot not talk about awesome things that I see on the pitch. And in this video, I am going to show you both footage as well as data to back my claims of showing you why Manchester United under Erik ten Hag, unlike what you've heard on other channels and from pundits, from people like Jamie Carragher and Paul Merson, Manchester United does have an identity, and Erik ten Hag does have a clear way of how he wants to play. Now, whether that's working or not, that's another conversation, but definitely we do have an identity under Erik ten Hag. What is that identity? Is that we are the best pressing team in England, and I'm gonna show you why. So let's look at this sequence from the game against Fulham. Again, this just shows Manchester United's ability to win high turnovers, to win the ball in the opposition half of the opposition. For example, here, Bernd Leno, as you can see, the Manchester United players are well equipped to deal with the build-up. Erik ten Hag himself, in the post-match conference, he talked about how him and his staff knew how effective Fulham were in the build-up play with the centre-backs like Tim Ream and Bassi. They do have good ball-playing defenders. And so one of their goals in this game was to actually disrupt that. And Manchester United did it very well. Garnacho going for the press. The Manchester United players, of course, they are well positioned here in order to intercept any balls that go from the back, from the Fulham's back four. And here, case in point, Scott McTominay is able to intercept that pass. And then Manchester United are able to win the ball. And so this is a clear improvement on Manchester United from what you've seen under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Ralf Rangnick, Jose Mourinho, Van Gaal, and of course, David Moyes. Now, I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna say, well, Mr. Scarlet Report, that's just Fulham. We expect to do that. Manchester United should do that against Fulham and Sheffield United and Burnley and Luton Town and teams like this. How about the big hitters? Well, actually, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, guys, by the way, for personal reasons, I could not post analysis videos. I didn't have the time. I was not in the right frame of mind, so I could not really analyze the Manchester City game and make a video about it. But of course, I watched the game, and of course, I've seen things that I liked from Manchester United, as well as things that I didn't really like. But this is one of the things I liked. In the second minute, this happened, and it happened quite a few times in the first half before that Manchester City penalty. Look at this, exactly what we did to Fulham. Long ball from Diaz towards Gvardiol. Bruno Fernandes is, of course, initiating the press. He's really tenacious, does not let Gvardiol to have any time on the ball. Meanwhile, Rashford, Scott McTominay, and Højlund position themselves in a way to cut these passing lanes over here. Gvardiol makes a mistake. There you go, checkmate. Højlund towards McTominay. McTominay goes through him. Rashford is moving towards this channel. Højlund is moving towards this channel. And here what happens is, again, the reason why we are not so effective, as effective as the other teams, is because of moments like this. Here's Scott McTominay with the outside of his right foot or with his left foot towards Højlund. That's it. This would have been 1-0 United. 1-0 United so early in the game. And that would have changed the outcome. Of course, 3-0, Manchester City were the better team, and fair play to them. They won. They are much better than we are. But, you know, football is a game of key moments. If you are able to lead 1-0 within the second minute, you actually have an advantage over Manchester City. You can manage the game better. But, you know, it didn't happen. But still, the key here is that Erik ten Hag has an idea, which is let's make Manchester United a very good, a potent pressing force in the league. Now, why isn't it happening? Again, you're gonna say, well, Mr. Scarlet Report, this doesn't mean anything because we are still shit, right? And I would not disagree with you. So let's look at some stats here. The first stat we're gonna look at is this one. So this is a stat from Opta, obviously. They are well renowned for their football and sports stats in general. And this stat is related to, as I've told you before, high turnovers. That means the team's ability to win the ball high up the pitch and counter-attack. As we can see here, Manchester United are the leaders in the Premier League with 112 high turnovers. Those are when the team wins the ball 40 meters away from the opposition's goal and are able to counter-attack. 112. We are the leaders. We are the best pressing team in the country. But why doesn't this stat right here translate into points and into us being, you know, second, third, or first in the league? Because of this. When you look at shot ending, that means how many of these turnovers, how many of these 112 ended up resulting in a shot. Well, as you can see, Manchester United are not doing very well. Only 18. Teams like Brighton, Tottenham, and Arsenal, who have less total turnovers than us, they are actually shooting more often than we are. That means they are much more efficient at turning those turnovers into shots. But what is even more worrying is that when you go into goal ending, that means how many of these turnovers result in goals. Manchester United are last, dead last, with 0 goals. So what this actually tells me is actually very simple, is that Erik ten Hag has a clear way of how he wants to play. He wants Manchester United to be quite aggressive with the way they press, go really high, press really high, put pressure on the opposition, and then counterattack them when they are vulnerable. And we are able to do this. However, we are not doing it effectively. So there is a difference between what you want to do and whether you do it effectively. So people like Merson and Carragher, when they're saying, yeah, but they have no identity, they're talking shit. And those are professional footballers. They should have seen this, but they don't, because they don't care. Pundits are just people who rant on camera. That's all they do. And so the question that we gotta ask here is why? Why do we have a lot of turnovers and yet we don't score? Let's look at a player, Marcus Rashford. Okay, so which one is that? I think that's gonna be this one. Okay, so here we are looking at the shooting stats from the big 5 European leagues. Okay, so France, England, Italy, Germany, and Spain. There is this stat here called MP G minus XG. What this stat is literally how many goals did this player score minus how many goals is this player expected to score. And the NP stands for non-penalty. That means this stat here does not take in consideration penalties, because penalties usually inflate these kind of stats. So this is as pure a statistic as you can have in order for you to see how efficient a striker is. And as you can see here from the list, we do have, of course, Guirassy, a player who a lot of people are talking about right now. He's in a great goal scoring form, just came out of nowhere. For Stuttgart. Jude Bellingham, of course, high goal scoring midfielder, one of the best players, probably the best player in the world currently. So obviously they are at the top. So let's flip it. Let's look at who are the least efficient strikers or players out there. Ladies and gentlemen, who are we going to find on the list? Marcus Rashford, number 4. In fact, if we go into England, okay, and we look at this stat again, this is just the Premier League, by the way, and we look at goals minus XG, there you go. Marcus Rashford is last in line. And then what you would say is this. Well, maybe Marcus Rashford doesn't have as good opportunities as other strikers in the league, which is a fair point. However, we do have a stat for that as well, which is NP expected goals per shot. That means what is the likelihood of each shot going, and it gives you a gauge of the quality of those shots. As you can see, Marcus Rashford is at 0.11, which is not really that terrible. It's not very good, but it's not also terrible. If we go and look at players who are similar to him, if we go down the line, where's Marcus Rashford? Over here at 0.11 expected goals per shot, we see one player, Edin Nketiah, right above him at 0.12. That means that him and Marcus Rashford have the same quality of chances. And yet Nketiah scored 5 goals out of 25 shots, while Marcus Rashford scored 1 goal out of 34. Edin Nketiah is much more clinical than Marcus Rashford is. Another player is, of course, Odsonne Edouard from Crystal Palace. Same thing, 0.12, really close to Marcus Rashford. That means most of his chances are about the same quality as Marcus Rashford, and yet he scored 4 goals out of 25, giving him a higher non-penalty goals minus expected goal stat. So Manchester United has a striker problem. Our strikers are not putting away chances. And our midfielders in the final third are not able to put in those final passes like I've shown you with Scott McTominay in that Manchester City game. Now you might say, what's the problem? How can we solve it? Because that's my role as an analyst. So let's have a look. Let's go back to the footage, okay? So if we keep watching, actually, I kind of had an epiphany watching this game against Fulham when I watched Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Basically, he epitomizes the sentence that says, you don't know what you're missing until you lose it. And that's exactly what it is. A lot of people have taken Aaron Wan-Bissaka for granted. Even though he was amazing for us last season, a lot of people were saying, yeah, but he's still not good enough. This guy is amazing, okay? Look at this sequence, for example. That's it. And do you know how many of these duels he's won against Fulham? He's unbeatable. Unbeatable. And if you don't believe me, I have another stat for that. Okay, let's look at Okay, there we go. So if we look at the defensive stats, okay, over here, look at this. We do have, this was actually from last season, but of course, Aaron Wan-Bissaka did not play a lot this season because of injuries, so of course, those stats are not relevant. But last season, he had a tackle success rate of 92%. Look at that, he's the only player in the top 5 leagues. As you can see, we do have players like Kim Min-jae, Eder Militao, Botman. These are some very good defenders. And yet none of them are in the 90th percentile. And there are only 2 that score 80% and more. Those are Daniel Vivian from Athletic Bilbao and Kim Min-jae from Napoli, who a lot of players wanted at Manchester United. Aaron Wan-Bissaka is a full 6 points higher than Kim Min-jae is. Again, proving that he is clearly the best defender in the world when it comes to 1v1 situations. And so why does this matter? Why am I talking about this particular aspect? Is because it's inspired me to talk about injuries and how injuries are affecting our performance. Whenever people hear injuries, they used as an excuse for Erik ten Hag right now, they actually don't look further than the obvious, which is, of course, if you have players who are injured, you lose that quality on the pitch. If you have players who are injured, it's hard to build that chemistry. But I do have another reason why injuries can hurt your performance levels on the pitch, and it is because of training intensity and variety. Here is how teams train. Of course, you do have physical training, etc. You do have training where the team just focuses on themselves. But a lot of training that is related to preparation ahead of a game revolves around the analysts and scouts' opposition reports on how the opposition plays. How do they play in different phases? What are their strengths, their weaknesses, their danger men? How do they score and defend from set pieces, etc. And then the managers take that and they just design drills that are designed to help prepare your players ahead of that game, so that they are not hurt by the opposition's strengths and so that they can exploit the opposition's weaknesses. And a lot of those drills are sometimes 11v11, sometimes are 7-a-side games, and sometimes there are micro games where you have a scenario. For example, let's say, how do we attack with our left back and left winger through the right-sided half space, for example. Okay? And with those trainings, what you need is, you of course need a good team that attacks, but also you need good defending players. The problem with this is that when you have injuries, it is very hard for the manager to field 2 teams that are matching each other in terms of strength. For example, an example of this has been the reason why Erik ten Hag is mad at Jadon Sancho is because he asked him to play the Martinelli role in a training session before the Arsenal game. That's why he didn't pick him, because Sancho did not do it well, or he didn't really give that much of, wasn't really bothered to try his best. But think about it. If you lost Aaron Wan-Bissaka, you've lost Luke Shaw, Varane, Lisandro Martinez, those are your best defenders. That means that when Erik ten Hag is trying to work on Manchester United's attacking style, he can only field a team that has Evans, Maguire, who's going to play as a right back. Well, probably not Dalot, because Erik ten Hag wants Dalot to be involved in the attacking phase as well. You want your fullback to actually be involved in solving the opposition's puzzle. So maybe he's playing Scott McTominay or Amrabat as a makeshift right back. Maybe it's Pellistri even. Maybe it's Victor Lindelof. But what this means is that Marcus Rashford, Sancho, Anthony, Garnacho, Bruno Fernandes, our attacking players in training, they are actually facing players who they could deal with relative ease. But they are not facing the best of the best that we have. If Marcus Rashford was facing Aaron Wan-Bissaka every single training session, then you can bet your ass that he's going to get better. Because it is a challenge. It is really tough to get past this man right here. He is the best defender in the world. And eventually, it's going to make Marcus Rashford a lethal dribbler. It's going to help him improve on his off-the-ball movement, because he needs to learn how to get away from Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Otherwise, he's going to be ridiculed by his teammates in training. And yet now, who does Marcus Rashford train with? Who does Garnacho train with? This is why our players are so ineffective in the final third. Final third? In the final third, I'm sorry for that. In the final third, because they don't get to practice against the best. This is why players, when they move to bigger clubs with better players, they improve. Because they are playing against better players. If Marcus Rashford trains against Aaron Wan-Bissaka every single day, every single week of a month, every single month of the year, he's going to become one of the best strikers in the world. No question asked. But the injuries are hurting us because it really changes the way we train. And obviously that affects the team's preparedness. Now, let's talk about Erik ten Hag. And this is where I'm going to have to be critical of Erik ten Hag's choices. But of course here, like, don't quote me on anything. This is just my opinion. Subjective. This is how you use the word subjective, not in making refereeing decisions. And when talking about Erik ten Hag, and what I want to criticize him on is, of course, Antony. I am done with this guy. I mean, look at this. What is this? What are you doing? What is this? Oh, come on. And then he loses the ball. And then look at this. What is he doing? Just, what are you doing? What? Come on. Like, okay, what is this? Antony, what is this? Here's my theory on this. Again, like I said, don't quote me on it. I don't have any facts on this. I haven't read any reports on this. But here's what I think. I think that the Manchester United board and John Murtho did not want to buy Antony for Erik ten Hag. I think Erik ten Hag suggested him, but they were like, nah, I don't know. We don't really like him. Our scouts don't really see good stuff attached to this Antony sign-in. At the quoted price, it's so expensive. We just spent £75 million getting Sancho. We don't know whether this is worth it. I'm not sure about it. And yet, Erik ten Hag probably just pushed on. I was like, no, I need this guy. Insisted. And then Manchester United were probably, okay, all right, fine. Okay, we promised to back you. Okay, we're going to go with Antony. Okay, let's get the deal through the door. You remember, Antony actually came in late in that first transfer window. So I think, and this is where Erik ten Hag would be wrong if that's the case, in my opinion. I think that he is taking the Antony transfer personally. But he shouldn't. I think that he's sticking with Antony despite the fact that Antony is not good enough, because he is his guy. He brought him in and he spent a lot of money. So he wants the Antony transfer to work out. But I gotta say this, a lot of managers got it wrong. Like, getting a transfer wrong is not the end of the world. It happens. It just comes with the business. You can make a judgment. It doesn't work out. It's fine. Sir Alex Ferguson famously got Juan Sebastian Veron and it didn't work out, and he was quite expensive. And he was a world-class player before coming to Manchester United, but just didn't work out in Manchester United. Within 2 seasons, he was off to Chelsea. That's how it is, right? A lot of managers, Pep Guardiola himself, he got Claudio Bravo because after he first came to Manchester City, said, I don't want Joe Hart. Claudio Bravo, I know him from Barcelona, etc. That was his guy. Didn't work out. Next season, Man City got Ederson, who was the scouting department guy. And Pep Guardiola just accepted it because he could see that Claudio Bravo did not work out. Let's get in a replacement. It's fine. It happened. Real Madrid got it wrong with Eden Hazard. You could even say Gareth Bale was probably the wrong transfer as well. So, managers get it wrong. It's fine. It happens. But why is he sticking with this guy? Especially when you compare and contrast with the impact that Pellistri has every time he replaces Antony. We could not have scored this goal. The goal that has given Erik ten Hag 3 points and allowed him some room to breathe without Pellistri. Let's look at Pellistri. First of all, the ball comes towards him. He's in a tussle with Anthony Robinson. You compare this to what we've seen from Antony before. Pellistri is much of a fighter. Look at this. Goes in, electric pace, goes and gets his ball. And then look at this. Can't get past him the first time. But look at this. Great tackle, tenacious, keeps the ball at play. So it's hard to get through. Anthony Robinson is a pretty good defender. I really like him. He was linked with AC Milan at a point, okay? He's good. And yet, Pellistri is carrying on. And we could only score this goal because of his tenacity and his determination. Here we get a lucky break. It's like a little game of pinball, but still, Pellistri is trying his best to apply that pressure. And that's how we found ourselves in this situation. Again, Bruno Fernandes goes in, Scott McTominay makes a nice move. This guy is definitely a striker, no argument there. There's a move, doesn't work out. Pellistri is again there because he's tenacious. We are going to score this. Gets the ball, gives it to Bruno Fernandes, and then here, Bruno Fernandes, Captain Marvel. What was that? That was amazing. And then beautiful shot and beautiful goal from our captain, the guy who can bring in the magic. He was not good throughout the game, but this is what we need your top players for, just for them to add in that key moment of magic. But this goal could not have been scored without Pellistri. So here's what I think. Erik ten Hag, please, if you are listening to this, Just play this lad for 5 games. Don't just give him a game here and there. Play him for 5 straight games. We have nothing to lose. He cannot be worse than Anthony. And if he's worse and he's not performing, just sub him in at the 60th minute. But he needs time. Look, the Carabao Cup against Crystal Palace, that pass to Diogo Dalot before he laid it off to Garnacho, that was Pellistri. Great move. Then now he comes in, and because of his tenacity and his hard work, we are able to score a goal. This kid is making a difference. He's contributing way more than Anthony is on the right wing. Therefore, I believe that he deserves a chance. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so I know that the performances have not been good, have not been mind-blowing from Manchester United. That's obvious for everyone to see. But I believe that this period we are in is all about grinding results. It's all about 1-0, 1-0, 2-1, 1-0, 1-0, keeping clean sheets. All we need is points to get up the table and to progress in the Champions League so that we can have time and space and a low-pressure environment for Erik ten Hag to keep on working with these players. Because at this point, we cannot just expect amazing performances to just fall from the sky. This team, the next game, the game after, we're not going to see 4-0, 5-0 performances with great world-class performances from the players. No, it's going to take time. But now what matters is grinding out those results. The key thing here is that no other manager can come in at Manchester United right now and do better than Erik ten Hag because of just the overall environment at Manchester United. Many have failed before him. Many will fail if they come in this current environment. So better to just stick with Erik ten Hag. Also, speaking of sticking with someone and providing advice, I've been thinking about how can I take the channel to the next level. So you guys can post a comment in the comment section below where you can just tell me what is it that you'd like to see more of? Like what works content-wise at the Scarlet Report and what doesn't work? What kind of videos would you like to see more of? I'm trying to kind of figure out my life a little better, try to schedule things better, manage my time a little better so I can post like 2 or 3 videos a week. It is quite ambitious, but I think that I can make it happen. So please leave a comment in the comment section below. Just tell me what is it that you'd like to see more of? What type of videos? Do you have any ideas for new content that I could create? Up until next time, cheers.